I'm Jaelyn Quintana, the SDSU Extension Sheep Field Specialist here at the 2021 Range Beef Cow Symposium. And one of our conversations this morning was on direct marketing, and so with me right now is Dr. Amanda Blair, the professor and extension meat specialist. So Amanda, tell us a little bit about what really triggered the increase in direct marketing interest in our industry.
Well, I think really if you look back to the, what spiked it here recently has really been what happened during the COVID pandemic. We saw consumers facing empty store shelves, especially, when they're seeking different proteins at the grocery store. And that, I think as a consumer that scares you, right? I need to get food, I need to feed my family. And I think, that really caused them to seek other alternatives for where to purchase meat, and one of those alternatives is purchasing directly from producers. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of coincided also with COVID, kind of causing a challenge in the supply chain on the production side. So producers were also dealing with, backed up supplies, animals that were, they couldn't get into through the processing chain. So those two things kind of collectively have kind of come to this head where we've seen an interest in both from the producer and the consumer side in exploring this direct marketing aspect. And I think from a consumer side, it's a chance to really, learn more about where their food comes from, and that's something that we've heard a lot about here in the last, maybe 5, even 10 years, wanting to know more of that backstory. And for producers, I think it's really a way for them to diversify their marketing. Maybe it's a chance for them to market a few head or maybe all of their animals through a different route.
Yeah, so these producers are obviously, they've been in the industry for a while, and if this is a change they're starting to make, what are some of the things that you recommend that our producers consider from how they used to do things to how maybe we should modify to more of this direct-to-consumer marketing? Right,
and I think, one thing is just, making sure that's something you can financially handle. If you're going to retain ownership of those animals all the way through the production chain, there's a lot of risk in making sure your animals are healthy, and you've got a good herd health protocol to make sure you're not going to lose any along the way. But also coming back to facilities, making sure that you have, do you have the ability to feed and finish cattle, or is this something that you want to seek out, a custom feeder to do for you where you retain ownership, but then get to oversee that marketing aspect to it. If you're going to do it on your own, I think, thinking about just what are the optics of your operation. If a consumer came onto your place, would they be happy and excited to buy beef from you, or would it be something like, they see and they're not sure about? We suggest taking a look at your operation through that lens. So if you can do some things that maybe have dual benefit, like, a suggestion would be, adding windbreaks, that has that benefit of improving animal comfort, especially during the winter months. Improving performance perhaps, but then also that's a way to, you could put that on social media and say, here's a way that on our ranch we, try to mitigate the environmental effects during the winter time. Mm-hmm. And that really goes a long way to helping consumers understand a little bit more about what we do and the lengths that we go to take care of our animals. So I think really looking at your operation, making sure your facilities are functional and aren't going to hurt your animals or cause any bruising that could ultimately go down, the path of causing product loss. Mm-hmm. Just from a standpoint of, anything and everything can be on social media. So making sure that, if something gets out there, that you're proud of how that's representing your operation.
I think you made a really good point in your presentation this morning about how we really need to try not to put down, just because we're raising a certain type of meat product, not to put down other meat. Can you elaborate on that a little bit and the importance of that?
Yeah, it's kind of that adage, you don't want to, cut off your nose to spite your face situation. Especially for, we've heard this of producers that maybe they want to sell directly, but the rest of their production goes into the normal supply chain. Well, do we really want to disparage what's going on in the rest of the industry just to promote what we have? So, there's a lot of different reasons and things that draw consumers to a direct situation with a producer. It might be a certain quality trait. They might be after a high marbled product, or it might be something about the way that animals produce, like grass-fed or organic, and those things are all different. But I think it's important to explain what you're producing and how you're producing it accurately. But again, not disparaging, and we don't want to make people scared of buying beef in general, just to support your product. So I always say, lift as you climb. Make sure that excited about your product, but also excited about beef in general.
Yeah, and what are, we have kind of dynamics of what a consumer's looking for versus, I think the big one is grass-fed versus grain-fed. What are some considerations that producers should have on those fishing options?
I think one thing is, being able to accurately represent what you're doing. Again, I think, consumers there's a lot of, language out there around this grass versus grain finish. And I think there's plenty of room in the market for both. But I think as a producer, understanding that, first and foremost, consumer is going to expect an eating experience as good or better than they would get at retail. Mm-hmm. But you also have to consider that most consumers in the U.S. have grown up with grain-finished beef. So that grass-finished product may taste or look or have different sensory attributes than what they're used to. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's just what people are used to. Mm-hmm. People that enjoy grass-fed beef, that's definitely, those attributes are what they're coming after. But if they're new to the market, you may need to, help them understand, this might taste or look different, and here's why, and here's why we do what we do. So just guiding them through that is really important to make sure that you're meeting their expectations for, different attributes that they might be interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the carcass characteristic differences in each of those?
Sure. When we get down to like a grass versus a grain finishing, I think things that you're going to see different from an appearance standpoint, those carcasses can look a little bit more yellow because of the amount of beta carotene from the grass. That's going to make the fat color a little bit more yellow. It's going to definitely have more, oftentimes consumers rate it as a more grassy flavor, and it can have a different cooking aroma than grain finished beef. Also, we see those carcasses usually finishing at a lighter weight with generally less marbling. So again, it's really finding that connection between a producer and a consumer that are, meeting each other's, what that product ultimately is, making sure that we're accurately representing it from the producer side and meeting that expectation for the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. So then switching gears over to more of the packer side of things, what are, I guess, some considerations that producers should have going into kind of that finished product, yields, that kind of thing?
Sure. I think, from a live animal standpoint, as we think about this whole market, it really kind of segments itself. Things that we do on the live animal side or before slaughter, and that, that really is, there's things that we can do even up until the point of harvest, where we want to make sure that, we're handling the animals correctly, that we don't cause any bruising right before harvest, that's going to have to be trimmed away. We want to make sure we're not stressing the animals, because all of those things can factor into what that end product is. Mm-hmm. And there's also a lot of considerations over on the processing side, building those relationships. And my colleague, Dr. Christina Baker, she has a wealth of knowledge in that area to visit about, and how that can impact your direct-to-consumer enterprise.
Perfect. Well, let's bring Dr. Baker on and talk about some of the carcass characteristics.